Ladies and gentlemen out there, uh, this is Jade and Nathan, and you're in tune to the Auxiliary Things podcast. I'm Nathan, and I'm here with my lovely wife, Jade, and we're going to talk some basketball.
Raptors mostly, but basketball in general also. So, first, we got to give some props to Fred Van Vliet of the Toronto Raptors for the title of our podcast, Auxiliary Things. It was a comment he made after game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals against the Milwaukee Bucks as a euphemism for terrible refereeing. But I liked it. I'm going to use it all the time. But I thought it was a good name for the podcast because we're not basic basketball fans.
Definitely not.
We talk plays, we talk business, we talk just a broader view of basketball, specifically the Raptors, because that is our team. So our podcast is Auxiliary Things.
So basically, all of them words means we're not casuals.
Definitely not casuals.
Or bandwagons.
Definitely not.
Recognize.
And to that point, so I'm a fairly young Raptors fan in terms of how long the Raptors have been around. I've been watching for the last 6 seasons. I grew up on basketball, but growing up in southwestern Ontario, we are an hour from Detroit and 3 hours from Toronto. Plus, I am old enough to remember having aerial antenna on top of the house to get our TV channels. Toronto channels didn't come in so great. So even though I was watching basketball before there was a Toronto Raptors, I saw Detroit games. I was a Detroit fan. My first favorite basketball players were Joe Dumars and Lindsey Hunter. When I moved out of my parents' house, I was away for basketball for about 10 years just because who I was around, who I was with, they weren't sports people. We were into movies. And I had a bit of a basketball hiatus. 6 years ago, I met my husband Nathan, who also grew up as a basketball fan, and he was a Raptors fan. So basketball was back in my life, and it only made sense that the Raptors were going to be my team from now on.
So my introduction to basketball goes back a little further, as my father was an avid basketball player. He played for Ryerson. I think he did a year. So he'd been playing basketball since before, way before I was an idea. And I liked basketball very early on in my life, uh, way before the Raptors. So I was around for the Chicago Bulls' early runs. I wasn't paying attention really to the 80s Pistons teams, but the early Chicago Bulls teams, the mid 90s Orlando Magic teams, Houston Rockets team, uh, Seattle Supersonics, yes, Seattle Supersonics, Sean Kemp, Gary Payton, those days. So that's when I started watching basketball heavily. But I would say the mid '90s. I was in my teens, early teens, and I love that East Coast basketball, rough tumble, elbows, forearms. I'm dunking on you, your mama, your daddy.
Everybody's gonna feel that.
If you and also if you're coming into the hole, you better be coming into dunk or it's getting slapped back. That's the era of basketball that that I've carried with me throughout the years.
So that means he feels some kind of way about today's era of basketball, but we will get to that at some point. So talk about finding out that the league was expanding and your hometown was getting a basketball team.
Let's see. This would have been probably started hearing about it in '93 or '94, and I don't know if I was that excited.
Really?
No, I was playing too, right? So it was like
Okay.
it was cool. I know I had one of the purple sweatshirts with the
The throwback
screen printed
Raptors.
Raptors. I think it was the wording. I know my sister ended up with my
Oh
sweater.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Um, but I didn't know what to make of it because it was just so new. It was
So
just so.
you it was so new you couldn't be excited.
I didn't get excited about stuff like that as a kid because I also after like also during that time I played a lot of football. I was into football too, so
Okay.
it basketball started to take the lead. I would say once the Raptors were established.
So Vince Carter era.
Uh, no, actually,
Before that.
I was around for Damon Stoudemire. I was
Okay.
watching Damon Stoudemire, Mighty Mouse.
I remember Mighty Mouse.
For his couple years where he was around, and then there's that ugly transition phase. Chauncey Billups, yeah, he was a Raptor with a flat top, for
I don't
sure.
know if I remembered that.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
watching Chauncey as a Piston, obviously.
yeah. I was around for the early Tracy McGrady years, and my dad loved him some Tracy McGrady because he saw the potential, and I was
Mhm.
like, yeah, he's gonna be good if he could ever shoot. And then he did over the years become a superstar, but not on the
Not
Raptors.
on the Raptors.
You know, I was there for the beginning of Vince and just watching him, his aerial assaults, and very. It was exciting. Even though the Raptors were still terrible, it was still you still know you could catch. He can catch someone, put his elbows on his face and just smash on someone, or, you know, it happened every game, right? But also at the same time, I didn't even have control of the TV, so it's not like I was watching every
Ah,
game either.
yes.
I did not come from a wealthy family that had multiple TVs at that time, so it was like a shared kind of thing. By the time Vince and they started to get good, so
Gotcha.
yeah.
All right, well, so as everybody already knows by now, the Raptors are set to make their first appearance in the NBA Finals on Thursday.
It's been so long.
It's been so long. Now, as again a fairly new Raptors fan, I am used to the Raptors being in the playoffs every year. The first season that I was a Raptors watcher, it became fan pretty quickly, but I would say I was watching that first year was the year that a decision was made. Are we going to go with Rudy Gay or are we going to go with Kyle Lowry? And a trade was made. Since then, like with most sports teams, watching the Raptors has been a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And I think that's putting it mildly. I think most fans would agree. There's times where they did everything right, and there was times where you just want to pull your hair out because it's like these dudes forgot how to play basketball. Who are these people? What is going on? But they're in the finals. And see, I'm at a point right now where I wish I had started a podcast sooner because then I could have it on record as saying I called as soon as I found out DeMar was getting traded for Kawhi Leonard. I said Raptors are going to the finals this year. And I only have my husband corroborate that, so believe it or don't believe it as you will.
It happened. I said it too. We both came to the same conclusion.
And it didn't take too much thinking to come there.
I mean, the only thing that would have made it, you know, possibly not happen from my perspective was if Nick Nurse, who was an assistant coach, a lead assistant coach, or if he wasn't promoted, or if he was promoted and he didn't do
He
well,
didn't do well.
then the team would flop. But other than that, I saw the talent levels going way up, and then also the opportunity to see some more creativity on the floor would go up, which
Mm-hmm.
means maybe they could maximize some of the guys' talents who were stifled.
Yeah, the creativity aspect of Nick's Nurse coaching as compared to Dwayne Casey's made a huge deal. And I think that was the pivotal thing that allowed Pascal to have the breakout season that he had.
Pascal.
Because he creates his own. He's inventive. Sure, they run plays through him once in a while, maybe, but you don't got to run plays for the guy. Dwayne Casey is not a coach that had that level of flexibility to give a guy the ball and say, go out and do you. And without that, I don't think Pascal Siakam becomes the most improved player. Not official yet, but as far as we're concerned, most improved player this season.
Hmm. So yeah, you called it. I called it. They're
And
there.
here we are. So, this is a win, regardless if they win the championship or not. I don't know that I can think of teams that got to their first championship and won their first championship.
Finals. Yeah.
Finals,
Yeah.
yeah, championship, same. Especially playing against a team who has won as many in recent years as the Golden State Warriors. So I'm not going to try and call that. I think that would be a crazy thing to try and do.
So I'll do it.
Okay, you do it.
I'll do it. Raptors are winning this series against the Golden State Warriors 2019 Finals. They are going to win. It's either going to take 6 or 7 games, but out of respect to Golden State, I'll say 7 games. There's a couple reasons why. Uh, I'll be brief. First, the Raptors play some serious defense.
That's true. And I have said that since game 5 or game 6, sorry, got done yesterday. One thing about West Coast teams, East Coast defense is a whole different beast than how they play defense in the West.
Mm-hmm.
It's grimy, it's annoying,
Yeah.
it's in your face, it's physical. And yeah, I get it. I get that the Warriors have had to beat East Coast teams a bunch of years to get the championships they have. I get it. But in my personal opinion, the Cavs did not play the brand of defense the Raptors were coming with.
Yeah. Cavaliers were not elite defensive squads. They were good enough.
And we have Marc Gasol, former defensive player of the year.
It's true.
Kawhi has been on all defensive NBA teams,
I think he even got a defensive player of the year.
possibly, and that's 2 or 3 starters right there.
So
And everybody, you listen to Norman Powell talk, you listen to Fred VanVleet talk. They're about playing defense no matter what else is going on. It's the first thing they always talk about. Not about scoring, about defense.
yep. So definitely, I think the Raptors defense and the cohesion and the buy-in from the players throughout the roster will mean that it'll be a lot more difficult to get that nice flowy, showy, runny Golden State offense going. And also the Raptors are bigger, so I think they'll be able to control the glass and therefore limit some of those leak outs. And Golden
Mm-hmm.
State gets that ball flinging around the perimeter.
As far as being bigger, though, we still have to do a little checking to see if Cousins is going to be back. The
Ah,
last thing I saw said they weren't expecting Durant to be ready for game 1 of the finals, but that was a few days ago.
you know what? From what I've seen, I don't I don't think the outlook for how they can win, the Golden State Warriors can win, changes that much in
Mm-hmm.
terms of ability. As I think sometimes Kevin Durant and DeMarcus Cousins take away in key areas from the Golden State team, where they add in some places and take away in others. Like I think maybe having Durant as a good safety valve in case things get tight, they can always get a one-on-one matchup and the 7 footer just shoots over everyone.
Right.
And Demarcus is a beast when he's healthy, but he don't guard anyone. So I think maybe this new more team oriented basketball uh, could be just as effective as how they were playing during the season, with just having a whole bunch of stars together taking turns,
Mm-hmm.
and then having Durant just to shoot over everyone when the game gets tight. So I don't know. I don't know if it affects their team that much because it they're pulling more ability out of Clay and Steph. Like those guys is like they've
Yeah,
woken up.
they had to. They haven't had any other choice if they were going to get there. The other thing that can't be underestimated is the same thing that, in my opinion, left Milwaukee out of the finals, and that's experience.
Hmm.
We do have some guys who have been to and won finals, which is new for the Raptors
Mm-hmm.
as of the DeMar DeRozan trade. We'd had guys that had been to the finals before that in Serge Ibaka, but not won.
Right.
So usually when a team's getting to their first finals, I don't know that you would have guys on the team that have won finals in other teams. I don't think that's going to be the case the majority of the time.
Hmm.
But it also takes out a little bit of that conversation of, oh, well, the Raptors aren't experienced in the finals. This squad as a team, fine, have never been to the finals. But there's enough finals experience on this team, enough deep playoff experience on this team, that I think that's going to be a lot less of an issue than if, say, the Bucks had won the conference finals and they were going up against the Warriors.
Well, yeah, I think if the Bucks managed to somehow beat the Raptors, it just would be destruction.
It would have been a sweep. It would have been Warriors in four. Which brings me to my closing comments.
Yes.
Within less than half an hour after the Raptors clinched the Eastern Conference this last night, Warriors in four was trending on Twitter,
Oh, they're in for a rude awakening if they really think that's gonna happen.
right? Like, how many times do people got to be wrong about a team before they wake up? Philly was supposed to beat us in four. We went down 2-zip to Milwaukee, and they were supposed to beat us in four. Okay, we're talking about a team who has never won coming into this year's playoffs, 2018, 2019, never won 4 games in a row to close a playoff series. And then they went and did it twice.
Oh yes, Orlando.
Orlando dropped game one, won 4 in a row.
No,
Milwaukee dropped games 1 and 2, and then won 4 in a row. So let me just say this. Nathan's made his call, Raptors in 6 or 7. I'm not going to make that call, but I will say the Warriors will not win in 4 games.